We'll do it live.
Hello, everyone. We are here. Uh, I never have a good way to start. This is a stream, and we're here to talk about stuff. Well, Lance just disappeared. But hello. We're going to talk about war movies today. I don't have a very extensive list because this is not my specialty. I mean, I have nothing against war movies. It's just I've seen a lot more sci-fi horror. Um, so I'm going to introduce you to my panel. Over here we got Thrash. He is going to be basically our expert. And down here we've got Scott. Um, I don't know. He's probably about the same as me. We'll see.
Yeah.
Well,
I
as
think
you
that's
know,
fair.
I call my den, I call it the bridge, and it's a twofer. It's the bridge in the sense of like how many times do they talk about the bridge in science fiction and Star Trek and Doctor Who? It's the bridge. We get to the bridge, you know.
Get the
So
boy
there's
off the
definitely
bridge.
so there's definitely a sci-fi theme, but I have an old credo because I am a war movie buff, as you probably do by this point, that any war movie with the word bridge in the title is a good one. And we'll be getting more into that later. So the naming of my den is actually based on as much war film as it is sci-fi and horror.
You
Okay.
know, I love the movie The Bridge to Terabitha just as much as anybody. So sorry. I had to.
I do have one movie with bridge in the title in my list. So you'll just have to guess which one later. For now, let's go ahead and say hi to the people who are here. Hungry Jerk is here, and I'm sorry that the chat rules say you can't be a jerk. I'll make an exception for you. Let's see. Daryl Johnson was here at 5:32 a.m.
Other brother, and thank you for your service, Daryl.
Yes, of course. Danny Staten is here.
Danny.
Let's see. Wajamin is here. Hey, Waj. How's it going? Slasher Fred is here. Awesome. Ooh, that's a good choice. That may or may not be on my list.
Ooh,
Let's see. Indy is here. Awesome.
gee.
Let's slip the films of war. I do like that. That's good.
Excellent.
I'll try to say hi, but I do have to warn you guys, I'm not going to be prioritizing the chat because if I try, I lose focus of the conversation and then somebody will say something and I'll be like, wait, what? So it's nothing personal if I miss you. Let's see, there's Calvin Dodge. Hello. That's much better, Lance. Yeah.
Good.
Okay, awesome.
Yay.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start with Thrash. I'm going to go last because host's prerogative. So Thrash, name a war movie.
Okay, well, I have an extensive list, and I'm going to, of course, pick from no particular order. But I'm going to start with one of my favorites. It stars Charlton Heston, but it has an all-star cast, and it's Midway. Of course, after the World War II tide-turning battle, pun intended, set in the Pacific War. And I love this for so many reasons. Charlton Heston is at his best, and I know some people don't like Charlton Heston as much as I do. I love the man, and I thought he was at his best in this film. Again, great ensemble cast. The gentleman who plays his son is actually the son of Eddie Albert from Green Acres. Little fun fact for you there. And of
Okay.
course, as we all know, Eddie Albert was a medic at the Battle of Tarawa. So, Mr. Albert, thank you for your service.
Didn't know that.
But I love this film because it actually depicts both sides in vivid detail. I mean, it doesn't just mention what the Axis were doing here or there, or even more importantly, it doesn't try to vilify them. They're not like, kill Americans, blood, gore. No, we see the actual players. We see Admiral Nagumo. We see Commander Genda. We see the people on the other side and what they were doing and what their motivations were and what their thought patterns were. So it creates like a crescendo. By the time the battle happens, it's almost operatic. And I'm not going to go into all the supporting cast members, but I got to point out one. There's a fairly well-known actor. His name was Ed Nelson. Some people might remember him. If you're my mom, he was on the TV adaptation of Peyton Place. But he did a number of those old schlocky sci-fi films, which, as you guys all know, I am in love with. One of which is Brain Eaters. Little fun fact on this: I believe it's actually the feature film introduction of Leonard Nimoy, and they even spell his name wrong. But anyway, Mr. Ed Nelson, he does a scene opposite Charlton Heston, and he actually manages to steal the scene. And I'm like, if you can do a scene with Chuck and you can steal it, you are definitely at your best. So for those of you who haven't seen Midway, you gotta check this out. If you're not familiar with World War II, it will still be entertaining to you, I promise.
I have seen Midway. It's been a long time.
Yeah.
But I was really distracted when you said that there are people out there who don't like Charlton Heston. Who are those people, and what are they doing on my channel?
I honestly don't know, but some people think he's a little on the melodramatic side. And
Well,
he
I mean,
was,
yeah, but that works.
It works great. Hey, I actually met one person who didn't like Humphrey Bogart. They're no longer with us.
Thrash,
Okay,
thank
Lance.
you for taking them out.
It was a pleasure.
I got one right here. Hey, Pearl Harbor.
Oh, Pearl Harbor. Is that that's the Josh Hartnett and Ben Affleck.
Ben Affleck, Kate Beckinsale,
Kate Beckinsale. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
and Jennifer Garner.
I do like the actual attack on Pearl Harbor in that movie. It's very well done.
It is.
Isn't
It's
Cuba
got-
Gooding Jr. in there also?
Who?
Cuba Gooding Jr.
Oh yeah,
Isn't he
Cuba
on
Gooding
the-
Jr. is
Yeah.
amazing. He's like the chef.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dory Miller, who was an actual person. He actually
Right.
was not trained in handling a deck gun. But since the deck crew were killed, he ran and supposedly got 4 confirmed kills.
Also, John Boyd
All right, John
Boyd.
Boyd, of course.
and Dan Aykroyd.
Yes, as an intelligence officer.
I guess I
Aykroyd,
haven't seen it in
the,
a long time. I forgot about that.
Yeah.
And Alec Baldwin.
Yeah, of course, Alec Baldwin. Yeah.
And
Oh.
Doolittle.
Yeah, good cast in there.
No, it is good, and I actually think Michael Bay's extreme style worked really well for the actual attack on Pearl Harbor. I thought that like his frenetic, everything's exploding in your face kind of style really worked. And the rah flag waving. I mean, of course, it's Pearl Harbor. It makes perfect sense. So, like, I actually think he was a good choice to make a war movie. I think the movie gets a little silly after that, but that's neither here nor there.
Yeah. I like for,
And
for
that
me,
love story, the three-way
It
love
does.
story.
I mean, I'm in love with Kate Beckinsale, so I can relate. Yeah.
Yeah.
When she walks across the flight area in that red silk dress, favorite scene in the movie.
Yeah. If I remember correct, she's a nurse in that, right?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. And I think if I remember correctly, like that was not an uncommon thing for soldiers after being wounded to develop romantic feelings towards the nurses that cared for them, right? Kind of this
Nightingale syndrome.
yeah, right?
There you go.
And so it's like as much as that can be seen as a detraction, right, from the concept of the movie and what have you, it to me, I think there's an important historical note of it to kind of point out. It's Michael Bay. He's not like but he's not one of my favorite directors. He's good.
He
for
is
certain
very
things.
weirdly respected in Hollywood. People in Hollywood love him for some reason. Like, he gets all these crazy, like, artistic awards, and I don't really get it. Like, sure, I like a good Michael Bay flick. It's silly and stupid, but I like him. But, like, I don't understand where he gets all this critical acclaim from. I don't know.
No, like he's a great big budget action, blow it up, no thought, no deeper meaning, no, just very surface level, superficial, like movie. Great, right? I'm all for that sometimes. Sometimes you got to turn off the brain. But like, I never go in expecting, to be enlightened on something. But I do think that the Nightingale syndrome, the develop, like I think that's like even if it is a Michael Bay movie, and the way that he went about it was ham-handed, but I do feel like that's a great thing to kind of point in that with these movies, that this is an experience that actually does happen at times. And so
No, that's a good point. And before we move on, I gotta say, Thrash, there's some truth bombs going on in the comments. Indy says Leonard Nimoy was in Them, and he's right. Leonard Nimoy was in Them. But then Hungry Jerk Tom came in and said that he was in Rhubarb, a baseball comedy movie, which I've never heard of, but I'm guessing he looked on IMDb.
Thank you, gentlemen, for I did say I believed, and now I no longer believe. But thank you very much for pointing those out to me. But in those movies, I hope they at least spelled his name right.
I actually forgot that he was in Them until I really thought about it, because he's not in it for very long.
No, he has one scene. He delivers a message into a radio room and kind of flirts with the woman who's telexing it.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, well, Scott, I guess that means it's your turn.
So one of the things, because this is one of the things that I always like to do, because when we get these great movies and stuff like that, like, and things that people might be interested in, I always like to look at, like, hey, where can you find them? And so if you want to watch Pearl Harbor, it's on Max right now, or Hulu, I think. Oh, no, it's through Max. And then Midway, you can watch it on Netflix right now. So if you want to watch those are available there. For me, I'm gonna go a little bit like, I'm gonna start a little bit obvious. Yeah, I'm gonna go with Saving Private Ryan, and I know that's a little bit, and
We have to talk about it. So
yeah,
I
know
room.
I know some people like have like dichotomous feeling about it, like, there's some people that don't really like it because of it's big budget, direction, and stuff like that. But I also like one of the things I found like really interesting with it. First off, to me, I like it. It's a good movie. I feel, and it's got a great cast, and the Veterans Affairs, actually, the VA actually had to post a helpline for PTSD when that movie came out, for all the soldiers that went and saw that movie, and so many were experiencing flashbacks and occurrences of their PTSD just because of how realistic, and they felt like it really got like what their experience was. And so to me, and then also I love the story, because like even I had to think about, I was like, wait a minute, there's a band, Caroline Spine, that did this song, the Sullivans, right, which is about the incident of 4 brothers being killed in World War II, and the entire family, like, 5, yeah, you're right, 5.
At the risk of being pedantic, sorry.
No, you're right. It was 5. Like, to lose
this
5
is the channel for
sons.
pedantry.
Absolutely. And accuracy is important. To lose 5 sons, right? And so when you're talking about Saving Private Ryan, like, so that's an experience that really changed that, which then leads to the Saving Private Ryan story, that we're changing this because so many people are going in that you don't want an entire family being killed off, right? And so having to go and rescue him because of this, Sullivan rule, that they sort of like created and everything, like, yeah. So I think it's a really, and the fact that it's based on a true story, and then you're going to rescue someone which you normally wouldn't rescue, because he's just like, who is this kid, right? He's a nobody, right? He's not like some VIP person. But to me, it also kind of goes into that, like, everyone has value, right? And that, just sort of our mindset. So anyways, that's my little segment.
No, I have a Saving Private Ryan story, actually.
Go for it.
My grandfather, who was in World War II, we didn't want him to watch Saving Private Ryan because we were worried about the whole PTSD thing. But he kind of wanted to in the back of his head, but he wanted to wait till he was ready. You know. So fast forward to 2004. At this point, my parents and my grandparents are living together in a big house, and I go over there to ride out Hurricane Francis with them. And in the middle of this hurricane, with the wind blowing through all of our many, many Florida windows, he decides now's a good time to watch Saving Private Ryan. And he's deaf, like pretty darn deaf. So when he watches a movie, he's got the volume cranked up to like 89, you know, like your ears are bleeding kind of level. So he's watching Saving Private Ryan with the volume all the way up in the middle of a hurricane, and it feels like war. Like it feels like the walls are coming down and a tank is going to drive into the living room any minute, you know? He sits there completely wrapped, like he doesn't really show any reactions. And then when the movie's over, he's just like, yeah, that was a good movie. That was it. He didn't have any like weird PTSD reactions, and he wasn't traumatized by it. He thought it was a good, pretty accurate portrayal of World War II, and that's all he had to say about it. It's like, I'm sitting there shell-shocked just from the experience of watching it in the middle of a hurricane, and he's just like, yeah, that's good. So that's my Saving Private Ryan story.
I also like your World War II, your use of the World War II diagnosis of PTSD at that time. So that's actually like what the diagnosis was during that time, was shell shock.
Yeah.
And speaking of which, it's funny because normally when you think of traumatic disorder with veterans, America's go-to is always Vietnam, and that's probably because that's when the awareness of it was really kicking in, and we tend to overlook the Second World War. And I've been giving that some thought, and Scott, you might be able to like support this, or at least tell me I'm being silly. I always thought now there were certainly plenty of soldiers who did suffer PTSD from the Second World War, but it seemed not as the percentage is much smaller than the Vietnam veterans. And could that be as a result of the fact that, well, we won, and so they seemed to have they had a much more emotionally strong support way of looking at things. Like it was terrible, but we prevailed. In Vietnam, we did not prevail. So they had the added guilt of feeling that somehow they lost. You know what I'm saying? And that may have caused an even greater sense of guilt and remorse. Does this sound plausible to you, Scott?
You know, that's something I'm earnestly curious about. That's a really interesting point, because when the soldiers came home, because like both had a draft, right? And so which a lot of people will think about like the Vietnam draft, but not think about World War II draft, right? That's why so many people were in World War II, because there was like a draft with it and everything. But there's also this, you know, we had a clear-cut bad guy, right? And, you know, especially now, like with Vietnam and the War of Tonkin, information that we've come out that, you know, like there was like, you know, with World War II, we had a clear-cut, as Lance said, Pearl Harbor, a clear-cut attack against us. So we felt victimized and assaulted and everything. And so when we won that, right? When we won that, there was ticker tape parades, all this different stuff, right? And I think you're right. Like when Vietnam vets came back, they weren't supported.
Yeah,
right?
they were
The
not
soldiers
treated
were
very
supported.
well. Yeah, let's
Right.
put it that way.
Yeah, they were not supported, but I also feel like I'm also curious if the social, and again, this is all theoretical. I don't know, like, but there was more of this because there was plenty of PTSD, and there was plenty of people that were going for treatment for shell shock. We just didn't understand it, and we had this mentality of pull yourself up by the bootstraps, right? Like
yeah.
that phrase came out during that era, right? Or a little bit before that, right? And even though it was a farce back then, we've adopted it. But like, whereas when Vietnam happened, mental health started to become more of a more of an insight aspect, and looking at the like when we started seeing, you know, the struggles of Vietnam vets. I think societally we had more people going into therapy. We started like having a little bit more awareness from the mental health community, all this different stuff, like really kind of starting our path to where we are today, where we acknowledge and recognize PTSD for what it actually is, right? And
Thank
so,
you.
yeah, and Bessel van der Kolk, where's my book? Oh, where did I set it? Oh, here it is. Bessel van der Kolk, The Body Keeps the Score. He's kind of the godfather of PTSD, and he did a lot of work with Vietnam vets. And
Godfather of PTSD.
I know, right? Like he's the one that did like massive research for these decades, and he's kind of the reason why we're aware of this. And again, he did a lot of work with Vietnam vets, and his book kind of got this kind of out and to the mainstream. So yeah, sorry for
No,
that.
no,
Oh,
it's
no,
okay.
thank you. That was a great answer. Because as I'm sure many of you already know, my favorite segment in the animated classic heavy metal is B-17.
17, yeah.
And it was actually, I felt terrible I found out years later, decades later, that the short story is actually based on a World War II bomber pilot's. He would have these recurring nightmares for years after the war about his dead friends coming back to life and being zombies. And it was just so tragic. And I'm like, here's this really excellent piece of entertainment, but the backstory behind it was so sad. It really kind of brought me down. So I mean, the PTSD of the World War II veterans was certainly there, but just for some reason, people don't talk about it as much.
Right. It doesn't get acknowledged, but again, I think it's because of that, like, you know, suck it up kind of mentality, right?
Yeah,
I think you're absolutely right.
Yeah, I think there was a lot of different factors involved. There is the lack of moral clarity. There is the lack of understanding of how mental illness affects people. There was a cultural stigma against it. You know, all these different things all came together after World War II. And yeah, so we don't really recognize PTSD as a World War II thing. Even though shell shock was really big after World War One, I don't think we talked about it as much in World War II.
It actually even goes back to even earlier
Right,
conflicts.
right.
There were stories in the classical period where men came back and they weren't okay. They weren't the same. There were reports of this. But it was really in the modern era where war kind of got real, where things got what they call total war. But even during the Civil War, there are stories that could be construed as PTSD. Guys,
Oh,
I just
absolutely.
realized I've frozen up again, and it's way too early in the show for this. I'm gonna bop out and come right back. Okay?
Okay, yeah, we'll be here.
I'll
I
be
just
back.
want to say hi to Tristan. He's here. I did think about trying to find a war movie that was also a martial arts movie, but I couldn't come up with anything even close. So thanks for your recommendation. I have not seen Eastern Condors, but I do love Sammo Hung. He's really cool. So yeah,
Hey, Doug,
yeah.
how about Glory?
Glory is a great Civil War movie. Yeah.
Because the night after I saw that, next morning my mom passed away.
Oh wow. Yeah, you've told me that before. Yeah. Anyway, yeah, it's let's see, it's my turn, I think, actually. So let me look at my lists. We've already talked about Saving Private Ryan. I'm going to mention Rescue Dawn. Now, this is a Werner Herzog movie from 2004. Christian Bale, Steve Zahn, and what's his name? Jeremy Davies. They're all like, it's during the Vietnam War. They're taken prisoner by a group that is like sympathetic to the North Vietnamese. And they're basically held as POWs. It's kind of like a really gritty, realistic version of The Great Escape. But it's really, really harrowing. And all three of the main actors lost something like 55 pounds each just to play the role. And they like filmed it backwards. They like filmed it from the beginning to the end, the end to the beginning, so that like they could lose all the weight, and then as they filmed, they would slowly gain weight. So they filmed the whole movie from the end to the beginning. And I thought that was kind of interesting. But it's a Werner Herzog movie, and Werner Herzog, he doesn't pull any punches if you know anything about Werner Herzog. So it's hardcore, but like it's a movie. It's still a movie about persevering in the face of impossible odds and impossible trauma, and just being able to find your own humanity in a situation like that. There are a lot of POW movies like that, but I feel like this is probably my favorite. I don't know if it's like my favorite movie to watch. That would obviously be The Great Escape. That's a lot of fun, but this is more. I think this is more poignant because it feels a lot more real, you know. So I don't know if any of you've seen it.
I have. I love. That's a great. I didn't even think about that one, but that's a great movie. And I'll be honest, like that movie, and because all three of those that you brought up give such a great performance, and in seeing what their portrayal, and I love Werner Herzog for doing this, because when you hear about like our heroes, like regardless of what you feel politically, like I grew such respect for John McCain. Like I already respected him for what he went through as a POW, right? But then you're seeing some of this stuff that they're portraying, and it's nowhere near what McCain went through, right? Because McCain had long-term disabilities associated with his arms, right? Like you get this like real appreciation, and the fact that he was like had the chance to leave and didn't refuse it. This movie really portrays that abuse and harm and and trauma, right? And like really, really well. And you just, to me, I grew a great respect for those that survived it, right?
Yeah, and Sean Ennis brings up a good point that Herzog also made a documentary about the very same thing, the true story. Little Dieter Needs to Fly. And yeah, I've seen that too. It is also very good and also very harrowing. But I think the movie is actually even more harrowing just because, it's the narrative story. You get that suture effect going and it really like gets you. So yeah, I don't know. Have you seen it, Thrash? Have you seen Rescue Dawn?
I have not, I must confess.
Wow. Got one that you haven't seen. Excellent. Well, it's more recent. I mean, more recent. It's like 20 years old, but still.
I probably should.
It's good. It's really good. I highly recommend it.
In 10 years, Thrash will get to it, okay? When it's 30 years.
It's in my to-do pile.
Oh.
There you go.
Which is about a 10-year backlog.
So, I will point out that Rescue Dawn is available on Hulu if you have that, and Little Dieter is available on Peacock.
I highly recommend both of them as like a double feature. It works really well.
And Scott, I have to thank you so much for pointing out where you can find these things, because I never think of that, because I am still clinging to my old physical media. I still have VHS and DVDs of all the films that I discussed, sometimes both.
Same.
Now, I have archaic, decaying technology to play them on, but at the moment, finding them in places is a non-issue for me, so thank you for filling in that gap. Appreciate it.
You never mentioned where we could find Saving Private Ryan, by the way. Have you looked that up yet?
Oh, yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought I didn't realize.
Maybe you did,
yeah.
and I missed it.
No. It's on Netflix. So
okay.
If you want to watch Saving Private Ryan, that's if you haven't seen it, which again is not going to be a huge number, but if you haven't seen it, it's definitely worth the watch. If you have, again, it's worth the watch. Barry Pepper in that, to me, was one of those that really made me recognize his real talent as an actor. I just that's another Barry Pepper. You got Vin Diesel. You got Tom Sizemore. Come on, at least if nothing else, in memoriam of just seeing him, he was such a great. I think he was like a gunner sergeant or like a high ranking sergeant, like enlisted class person. He was great. Tom Sizemore. That's. Again, for that performance alone is worth the movie.
Yeah, and the other guy, Ed Burns, he's almost like a secondary lead. Yeah, he's really good.
Yeah.
I mean, he's devolved into Hallmark movies these days, but he's still really good.
Matt Damon?
Say again. Matt Damon, of course.
Yeah.
Matt Damon.
Yeah. Tom Hanks and Matt Damon lead it, but yeah. Ed Burns also I love him as a director too.
Yeah, he is a good director.
I saw one about 2 weeks ago called Hacksaw Ridge.
I don't think I've
I'm
seen that.
familiar
one.
with it, but I haven't seen it. Yeah.
I've seen it. And boy, do they go realistic in that one. I have to warn people, it's an amazing film, but it's incredibly graphic. So, if for those of you with like weakness of heart or stomach, I have to qualify it. But Lance, I'll give it to you. It's an amazing movie.
And
That's one
Andrew
of
Garfield.
Yep. Go
Is
ahead.
that the one
Sorry,
where
Lance.
he's like a pacifist? He
A
doesn't want to
medic.
kill anybody.
He's
And
a
he's a medic,
conscience
yeah.
objector.
They don't want to carry guns.
They make him a medic.
Right, yeah.
And it's based on a true story too.
Yeah, most war movies are.
Yeah.
Not all, but most.
At least the war is true. There was a war.
And I also like Hugo Weaving as the dad, as Andrew Garfield's dad. Hugo Weaving from V for Vendetta, Matrix.
Yeah. Lord of the Rings.
Lord of the Rings.
Anyway,
Yeah,
Thrash.
No, that's it. Well, I just wanted to bring up for people. So first off, Hacksaw Ridge is available on Netflix, but also you got Vince Vaughn, Sam Worthington, Teresa Palmer, like Viggo Weaving, like it's Rachel Griffith. Like it's a phenomenal cast. It's one that I really want to watch, and I'm upset at myself that I haven't seen it yet. So good call, Lance. Sorry.
Thank you. Go, guys.
Well, I decided to go a little off the rails for this one because what's a good podcast without someone throwing something out there that's completely off the rails? So the second one I'm going to introduce, and I'm sure the comments will blow up arguing on this one. I picked The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly.
Ooh.
Wait for laughs.
Okay, Sergio Leone,
Okay.
of course.
Sergio Leone, amazing film, one of my favorite westerns of all time.
Mm-hmm.
The power structure in the triangle, I love the movie. I love the performances, and in my opinion, it does count as a war film because it is set in the backdrop of the last days of the American Civil War. Now, the actual history is about as accurate as an episode of Hogan's Heroes. I'll grant you that, but it really shows the hardship and the destruction of what went on in the U.S. during the conflict, particularly if you see the extended director's cut, where they actually found all the European footage and had to redub the voices back into English. And there's one particular scene which involves the Confederates and Union trying to take this particular bridge, and it shows the incredible waste that is war. There's even a scene where, now of course, the main characters are all professional killers. Clint Eastwood is looking at this battle and says, "I've never seen so many good men wasted so stupidly." I mean, these men kill for a living, and even they are horrified by the action. And you know what? I think now, again, a lot of good war movies have the war as a centerpiece, but I think some of the best war films are much like Pearl Harbor, where the war is there and it's almost like a character, but it's the human drama, the interaction between the characters that really make a good film. And so I would argue heartily that The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly does constitute a war, or at least anti-war film.
It's definitely structured like a war film, so I'll give it to you. Yeah.
Thank you.
But I also have to say thank you to Tristan because he gave me a super chat. I've written down Redcliffe. I will get to it. I will find it. Scott, tell me where I can find it. You look it up.
You can find it on. I already did. You can find it on Amazon Prime.
Excellent. I'm going to write that
Yes.
down. Amazon Prime.
Yes.
Amazon Prime. There we go.
Yeah.
And since you gave me a super chat, I got to give you a thanks. So let's see, which ones have I got? Let's show you this
3,
one.
2, 1. Have a nice day.
Baseball.
Thank you, Tristan.
Hey, how about Good Morning Vietnam?
Of course.
Oh.
Good choice. I wish I had thought of that one.
I did not.
Yeah. Robin Williams at his best. Yeah. That's a good one.
Adrian Cronauer.
Yep.
And great supporting cast. Forrest Whitaker,
Exactly.
Bruno Kirby, just some
Robert
great
Wolf.
supporting actors.
Robert Wolf. Yeah.
Kuban Wen. That's another like I
J.T.
no,
Wong.
I just looked up the cast. It's just,
J.T. Wong.
we all know Kuban Wen, and so
So who's
Yeah,
next?
J.T. Wong.
Scott? Is Scott next?
I mean,
no, I didn't like. I was
we
going
still
to
have
say
to talk about Good Morning Vietnam.
yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
No, I love it because again, like, you know, like there's certain aspects like that I find interesting in what soldiers cling to for normalization and
Hi, Mom.
for like distraction from the horror that's going around them, right? This dissociation from that, right? And that how important, especially when you're in war, like to know what's going on at home and you're away from home, and how chaotic Vietnam was, how much of an important value the radio was, right? And you know, and like and also like the emotional complexity of, you know, being in this war when, you know, I don't know, I always love like the introspection of the soldiers or the reflection on the soldiers thoughts, because they're the ones that have to like suffer through this while other people are trying to get bars, right? Like, and you know, they're kind of put into this place, this position, you know, of having to do the work, and certain people are making choices not on what's best necessarily for the soldiers or whatever, but for their own ability to get stars and bars and stuff like that at the expense of some of the soldiers and their, you know, frustrations with that. And so to kind of cope with this, finding outlets in order to normalize things and get through it and everything. And so the radio and the communication can be an important part of that. So
Huge. Huge. And that kind of started in the Second World War. But with the advent of the transistor radio, pretty much every unit could have at least one personal radio on them, even in a combat situation. Now, you probably wouldn't want to play it during a firefight or at night when you're having enemy soldiers come upon you. But just the idea that you could actually stay in contact through radio to the rest of the world must have been an incredible boon for these soldiers.
No,
yeah,
I
especially
agree,
like yeah, when you're in the barracks away from the fighting, right? To kind of feel like that to get that emotional revitalization, right? The drain of being on the line and then coming back to the barracks to be able to decompress, right? And to, because you can't fully decompress, but you can, it helps with kind of like displacing it for the time being.
It's just a Robin Williams.
Oh yeah.
Platoon.
Well, Platoon, of course. Yeah, obviously.
yeah.
That's on my list. We'll get to it. But it's Scott's turn. Scott.
Okay, I'm gonna go
Okay.
a little bit. It's a war movie. I strongly believe that it's a war movie. But it's a little bit like different. But Braveheart, like,
Sure,
like,
that's a war movie. Yeah.
yeah, like, to me is one of the just. Again, I love it because it's the people rising up against oppression, and then the failing of leadership. Right, they turn to Robert the Bruce to help, right, and listen to the people, but Robert the Bruce doesn't want to, and then later, you know, tries to overcome where he failed, right, after it. But like it just, and you know, also how we can find inspiration, and an average person, you know, can be an inspiring figure. Like, it's something like he would be like. Anyways, sorry, go ahead.
No, it's okay.
No. I think you're right. I mean, because he wasn't some overblown classical hero type. He was a regular person who simply rose to the occasion. It's sort of like your William Tell story, or there's dozens of historical parallels to other characters, but yeah, he was just a normal man in abnormal times, and the fact that the conflict that he, I don't want to say engineered, but he kindled into a huge massacre. It wasn't even resolved by him. It wasn't actually
Right.
resolved until after his passing, sometime later. But he inspired his side to keep fighting.
Right. Became a martyr for the people.
Exactly.
Okay, well, yeah.
And you can watch it on Amazon Prime.
Oh, right. Okay, so I'm going to go back to a movie that was mentioned right at the very beginning, Paths of Glory. Now, this is Stanley Kubrick. So if you had Stanley Kubrick on your bingo card, because there's multiple choices. But this one is Kirk Douglas plays a French general who, during World War I, who is tasked with defending 3 representatives of 3 different groups who all had agreed not to, or had decided not to participate in basically a suicide mission. Like, they were going to die and it was going to serve no purpose whatsoever. And so they didn't do it, but they're now being tried for, cowardice, for not following orders. And the whole trial is just a farce. And Kirk Douglas just makes it very clear that it's a farce. And spoiler alert, they get executed anyway. And it's just about, it's one of the best anti-war films. I mean, most war films are anti-war films, but this is one of the, I think, strongest. It really, really gets its point across. And of course it's Kubrick, so it looks really good. And he gets really good performances out of the actors. I don't know what else to say about it other than it's a really good movie, and if you haven't seen it, you should see it. It's probably the best World War I movie I can think of. I'm sure there's others, but it's the one that always pops in my mind. So yeah,
It's an amazing film, and it really shows the, I don't know if absurdity is the right word, but just the almost the complete and total evaporation of reason during that conflict.
yeah, the madness of it. Yeah,
I mean, 3 units effectively mutiny, or at least refuse to go into combat, so they just pick one soldier at random to execute them as a punishment. I mean, what is this, ancient Rome? Are you going to go back to decimation, maybe? And again, Burt Lancaster has some of the best lines.
of course.
The general, there's that great red herring where he gives the report to the general, and the general says, "Ah, thank you," and you think he's actually going to reverse the decision, and no, they get executed anyway, and you find out that the general thought that Lancaster was stabbing his commander in the back, his commanding officer, so he could take his place, which he offers him the job too. And he goes, "I thought this was what you wanted, my boy." And he gives this amazing line. He goes, "I am many things. I am not your boy." And it's like you just want to get out of your chair and cheer when he says that.
Yeah.
And then there's that amazing like little postscript at the end where his men are like allowed some time off, and they're in a pub, and they drag out this German girl who I guess is a refugee they captured, and you think, okay, this is gonna go really, really, really bad, but no, they have her sing, or they ask her to sing, and she starts singing, and they all start singing along even though they don't know the words, and there's this amazing feeling of compassion in a time of horror. And it kind of lifts you up because it's such a sad and depressing movie that there's one inspirational scene. It's just a very nice postscript where it says, you know what, better days are ahead. And I'm sure in World War One, people forgot that there were better days ahead, but they did prevail. And well, there was the Depression and all that, but there were better days at one point. Now, I'd like to think that we're back into the there will be better days ahead. At this time, I'm less convinced by the day, but hey, you know what? Let's try to take a little inspiration here and think there will be better days ahead, huh, folks?
Yeah, I think there is. Whether or not we'll be here for it is another story.
Right? Hey, what was it? There's an old like saying or whatever that a truly wise man plants the tree that he will never see. Right.
Right.
And so, right. And so let's be that.
Okay, Scott, where can we find Paths of Glory? Have you looked it up yet?
Yes, I already did. You can find it actually on YouTube. You can find it on YouTube, Pluto, and Tubi, right?
Cool.
But you can watch it on YouTube for free, the whole movie, it looks like. So it's free with ads.
Okay.
Good pick.
Yeah, I guess it's your turn then, Thrash. What do you got?
Me? Oh,
Yeah,
I
you.
lost track. Okay, well, since you talked about World War I films, I'm going to go a little more predictable in this case, and I'm going to pick All Quiet on the Western Front.
Yeah.
I gave the game away, didn't I?
Well, I know you.
And you know what? But one thing I have to qualify, and I will not pick either the 1981 or the 1932 over the other. I see them literally as double feature material. In fact, this is a true story. I had a couple this year when I was running the video store back when there was such a thing. Some high school kids came in and they had to do a book report on All Quiet on the Western Front, which they hadn't read. So they were going to watch the movie and base it on that. And I'm like, well, it's worth a shot. And they asked, which one should I get? And I said, both of them, because there's some in one and not the other, and vice versa. And they did. And I'm like, you really have to see the two together to get the full experience of the book, which I've actually read on about a half a dozen occasions. It's one of my favorite books. They did sand the movie down from the book. You really kind of have to. But again, it's amazingly accurate. Both of the movies are incredibly well cast. And it really gives a flavor for what the experience of the war was. But again, the great thing about this one is it's what the enemy side, what they were going through, which you just don't see a lot of in other works. It's always the Americans, or the Americans and the English maybe, but you don't know what was going on inside the enemy camp, and I think it provides that. And not just in the matter of the war, but even socially. There's a couple scenes where he actually refers to what was going on in the home front in Germany at the time. So it really gives an excellent depiction. So as far as story, historic perspective, and just enjoyment factor, I have to go with All Quiet on the Western Front Compendium.
Have you seen the 2022 version?
Yeah, the one that just came out.
I haven't. It looked absolutely amazing. I just hadn't gotten around to see it. Have you guys seen it?
No, haven't seen
I
it.
haven't even seen the original. I'm sorry.
I love the fact it's in the original German. I like that. I mean, I'm not opposed to subtitles, as I'm sure you guys know by now. And something tells me, if it's a miniseries, something tells me they put in a lot of the things that were omitted from both films. And I don't want to give the game away, but there were certain things that kind of, shall we say, pressed the envelope. And I'm sure they could deal with that in a more accurately these days.
Oh, let's see, Lance. I think it's your turn.
Well, let me point out
wait.
that you can watch both the 1930 and the 1979 both on YouTube for free with ads, and then the 2022 is on Netflix.
I got the year wrong on both of them. Shame on Bonds. Shame. Bad Bonds, man.
Oh, I didn't I was trying to look those up for you, so I didn't notice that.
Oh, but yeah, I was close. I was within 2 years on both.
How about the Patriot?
The Patriot. Yeah. Mel Gibson. During the American Revolution, stabbing the British through the gut with an American flag. I mean, how can you not love that?
Right?
I do love The Patriot. I think it's great. I don't think it's obviously not even remotely historically accurate. And I say that as a Revolutionary War buff. But like, it's still a good movie. It's still fun. It's still it's still poignant. It has the typical Mel Gibson, his whole family dies and he has to seek revenge kind of plot. You know, that's every Mel Gibson movie, isn't it?
Braveheart too, right?
Yeah, Braveheart, Mad Max, Lethal Weapon even.
It's so true.
Well, yeah.
It is a theme of his. The beaver. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, Liz, I never gainsay you, so please forgive me. But in this one, there's one thing, and again, it's not historically accurate. There's one thing about that movie I couldn't get my mind, and I don't know if Mel Gibson hates English people, or he was just going through a phase where he hated them at that time. But I mean, he went so overboard to show the English as monsters. Now, and again, and there were some horrible things that the English did do to the colonials during the conflict, but for the most part, they recognized we were still English subjects, and would one day be brought back into the fold. So the level of atrocity, and the one particular one, when they put all the people into the church and set it on fire, nah. Nah, that never happened. That absolutely did not happen. And almost you're insulting the historians by putting it in there. Things like that happened in the Ukraine during World War II. So if you were making a World War II movie, I'd give it to you. But I can't do it in the Patriot. They went too far off the mark, in my opinion.
I mean, like when you're telling a war story, you go in one direction or another. You go for historical accuracy, or you go the other way, which is what the Patriot does. The Patriot it's not historically accurate, not even close to historically, but it's trying to bring, it's like a morality fairy tale. It's trying to bring moral clarity and a way of America like looking at itself instead of like how it really was, So like I get that, but come on. Jason Isaacs as like the evil British is just fantastic. I love that movie.
I'm not saying it's without its merit, but unfortunately, it lost me in that. I'm afraid.
Fair enough. I feel that way about other movies, so I can appreciate your sentiment.
Which is odd because I loved Inglourious Bastards.
Yeah, that's that's about the same level of accuracy. Yeah.
And I love that one. So.
Well, where can we find that one, Scott? Did you say?
It's purchase only.
Oh,
yeah. So you'd have to like, I think you could rent it from Amazon Prime, but yeah, it's there's nowhere that it's streaming for free, which is unfortunate.
I don't know where Lance went. Maybe you made him mad.
Yeah.
Oh,
you can rent it. You can rent it for $3.89, so it's not too expensive. But you can watch it or rent it from Amazon Prime. Nominated ×3 for Oscars. So
okay, was it
I'm
really?
in the minority here,
Yeah.
and I'll admit that. So Lance,
Maybe it was something like costumes and sound editing. Maybe those kind of Oscars.
So the taglines, the genre taglines that it has for it are action, ambitious, bleak, and historical. I don't like historical.
Historical doesn't belong there.
I agree with Thrash. It does not. It does not. Should not have historical.
Pass the Bechtel test as far as history goes. The other three, I'll give it.
Before Scott goes, I did want to quickly just acknowledge my mother brings up Letters of Iwo Jima. That's one of the two Clint Eastwood movies that's like from both sides of the perspective. There's the Japanese side and the American side. And Letters from Iwo Jima is really, really good. I don't remember what the Japanese one is called, but it's also really, really good. Ken Watanabe, I think's in it. It's so good.
I thought Letters from Iwo Jima was the Japanese one. I thought Flag of Our Fathers was the American
Oh, you're right. You're right. Letters from Iwo Jima is the Japanese version. Flags of Our Fathers is the American version. They're both good, but the American version's more about it's more about just how we propagandized it. Like more than the actual battle itself is more about what happened afterward. So that was interesting. It was an interesting take. Anyway, good movie.
I will say this because I'm kind of peeved because Letters of Iwo Jima is not streaming anywhere. Again, it's one of those that you have to rent or purchase, and then Flags of Our Fathers is on Showtime. But yeah, I agree. Both of them are really good movies. So
I've forgotten about those. I haven't seen them in a long time.
Yeah,
Thanks, Mom, for bringing it up. I forgot. Anyway, Scott, your turn.
So, for me, I'm gonna go with oh, where is it? I've got so many things up now. Do, 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 do. The Tuskegee Airmen.
Oh,
There we go.
wow.
Yeah, the Tuskegee Airmen. Like that to me is, again, I went to Booker Taliaferro Washington High School. So I know what the T stands for in Booker T Washington. We had to learn that. It is like you've got Lawrence Fishburne, Cuba Gooding Jr., John Lithgow, Andre Brower, Malcolm Jamal Warner, Courtney B. Vance, Alan Payne, Christopher McDonald, Mekhi Phifer, Vivica A. Fox. I mean, come on, Vivica A. Fox alone. Ned Vaughn, Ed Lauder. Like, it's just like packed with amazing actors. It is a great story, but and it also like portrays the importance of those pilots and the job that they did to really help us win the war, right? As well as the lack of respect that they got, right? Because they were an all-black force, right? And I haven't seen Red Tails, so but Red Tails I think is sorry, I've got an eye infection. But Red Tails I think is like a similar movie, and to me I'm like I just you can't beat like the Tuskegee Airmen. Like that was such a great movie. So and you can watch it on Max. So
I haven't actually seen it.
Are you serious?
I know about it, and all those actors. I mean, that was like they were in their prime too. Like that was like
yes,
that was like the best time for all of them.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. It slipped past me. I wanted to see it, but I never did. Never got around to it.
That's one that one like that of all of the ones, like that's one I think people have to watch. It's so good. It's so good.
I'll write it down next to the one that Tristan recommended. Just to make sure I see it.
And again, it's the historical place mark. It's so important. I mean, it's something that we're still discussing to this day. World War II was possibly, if there was ever a war where race was a factor,
well, yeah,
it was World War II. I mean, we were fighting the Axis powers because of their institutionalized racism. And so, on paper, we were the nation that was fighting against racism. Oh, but wait. Here's this one aspect which doesn't really fit the narrative, does it? Blacks are second-class citizens. Well, how is that okay? Now, I'm not even going to get into the fact that supposedly one of the factors that made Hitler think of the camps and the deportations was based on how America treated the indigenous. Not even going to start with that one.
Right.
But in contemporary history, again, you're fighting the Germans to free Europe from this horrible racist monster, and you're still using segregated units. I'm like, am I missing something? And the fact that we're still having a narrative on this to this day,
right?
Well, come on.
I mean,
point.
Glory mentions that in the Civil War as well. It's the same idea, is that like here we are trying to fight against racism and we're still segregating our troops. Like, what the heck is that about?
Well, and there's in a soldier story where Adolf Caesar. And I just froze again, so I'm gonna have to like Pagliacci. I'm not gonna like bounce out and bad in. I'm just gonna have to leave it like this for now. But
I like that one. This is a good freeze frame for
it. It is. Anyway, he talked about how you, no matter what you do for the whites, they'll always hate you, and it's this like chilling scene. Have you guys seen A Soldier Story?
I have.
I think I watched it a long time ago. Yeah.
Yeah, because it's, and of course he actually is the bad guy in the movie. God, don't give the game away. But it's something that was a huge deal. Then, prior to then, and into now.
Oh, and you can watch A Soldier Story, which I will. Oh, because again, that's another Adolf Caesar, Denzel Washington, Howard
Amazing
Rollins,
cast.
David Allen Greer, Art Evans, Larry Ripley. Like, God, dog, man. Anyways, you can watch that for free on Pluto TV and Sling TV. So,
Excellent.
Awesome. Okay, I think it's my turn.
Okay.
Man, I got a lot of stuff on my list still, which is amazing me. But I want to talk about a different one, like something we haven't really touched on yet, and that's Hotel Rwanda.
oh,
Let's talk about a movie that portrays what it feels like when all of a sudden there's a genocidal war happening right next door to you. Like, what do? You got bands of people roving around with machetes, just slaughtering people left and right for basically no good reason. Like the whole Hutus and was it Tutsis? I don't remember.
yeah, Hutus and Tutsis. Yep.
Like they basically had no differences between them. Like it was all very arbitrary. It was very like Hatfield and McCoy's kind of thing. And yeah, it just erupted into the worst kind of violence and the worst kind of slaughter, and it's happening all over, and there's no way to escape it. There's nowhere to go. You can't not pick a side, and it's such a good movie. But I wanted to bring that one up just because of that harrowing portrayal of a war you can't escape, like something that you are stuck in, and it's not because you've been drafted into it, it's not because you volunteered to go to the front lines, it's because it's just your house is now under attack by men with machetes, like and children even with machetes, because child soldiers and all that. Just such a good movie. Yeah, that's all. I just wanted to bring that one up.
No, great choice. And it's funny you mention that because there's another theme that I picked a couple under, and that is wars that you don't even think of. I mean, we all think World War II, Civil War, Vietnam. I mean, these are the first things that jump out at us. There were a lot of minor wars that were still very major to the people who were involved with them, and had some amazing films made about them. And so I think you probably picked the high watermark of that theme.
Yeah.
And it's a concept, like, to me, I love movies like this because it's a concept that we see playing out all the way up to today. It's still something that we haven't.
It's still happening all over the world. Yeah.
Right. That we haven't, gotten away. And so it's like, it's an issue that we still haven't learned from. Right. And so like, these movies that give these different insights are just always so important to kind of like, to look at, so that hopefully we can learn from it.
I could have easily brought up a couple of really obscure African movies about Rwanda even, but like I chose not to because I don't want to show off my film geekness and just throw obscure movies at you that only I've seen because I studied African film in college.
Oh, really? Oh,
yeah,
that's actually very cool.
Yeah.
And it's got a great cast. Hotel Rwanda, great cast. Don Cheadle,
of course. Yeah.
Okanido, she's phenomenal in it. Nick Nolte, Joaquin Phoenix, and I'm gonna mess up this kid's name, but Ofinsi Modiselli. I don't know, but he was really good. He was a kid in it, but he was really good in it too. And you can watch it on Prime, Tubi, and Pluto TV for free.
Cool.
And Prime if you have a subscription, but Tubi and Pluto TV are free.
Okay. Yeah, that's good. Awesome. So, Thrash, you get to pick another one.
Well, let's see here. I can't tell. There was one that actually didn't make my list, but I think we've hit a couple nails on the head. I think I'm going to put it in as a sort of an alternate, and that is a movie based on the Soviet-Afghan War, and it's called The Beast with Jason Patrick.
Oh, right. I have seen this movie.
It's an absolutely amazing film. It's part war flick, part adventure. That is to say, it actually really plays out as you were saying earlier. It plays out more like a fairy tale, but it shows the hopelessness of the Soviet position, the horrific things that were happening to the Afghan civilians, how it was. a lot of people at the time, I remember when I was a kid, they were calling the Afghan War, they were calling it the Soviets' Vietnam, and it really plays out like that, only with less trees.
Yeah.
And the conflict between the main characters, spoiler alert, one of the Soviet soldiers who is not really for the cause runs into conflict with a tank commander. It's all centered around this one tank crew that takes part in a reprisal raid. And because of some bad luck, the tank gets separated and can't rejoin the rest of its unit. And this group of Mujahideen and some other civilians decide they're going to take the tank out. And they chase it down. It's almost like Moby Dick, really. But what happens is Jason Patrick, who plays this soldier, ends up, well, they try to kill him, but he ends up deserting and joining the Mujahideen. So there's this whole duality thing going on. And one of the things I love about it most is the fact that America is not involved. So I can actually watch the whole thing objectively and take sides with any preconceived notions of patriotism or what I should do. Now, there's a right side and a wrong side in the movie. I'm not going to even tell you what it is. But I mean, it was actually fun watching a movie where you literally don't have a dog in the fight, as it were.
No, I mean, that's a good show. I haven't seen it in a really long time. I saw it like, God, I don't know. I was probably in my 20s. So I don't really remember, but I remember really I found it kind of profound and interesting because it was from that completely divorced perspective. And, you know, until we ourselves went into Afghanistan, not a lot of people talked about Soviet-Afghan war here in America. It just like wasn't on our radar because we weren't involved. So, yeah. Good movie. I don't know. That's all I have to say about it. Good choice. Excellent choice. And where can we find it, Scott?
You can find it like I'm actually making a Word file so that hopefully
Nice.
we can add it as a comment or a pin.
Yeah, maybe
so
I'll
that
put it in the comments. Yeah.
pin it or something like that, and then that way people can find it, find these movies. But you can find the piece on YouTube with ads or Tubi for free. So
Cool.
Oh,
Excellent.
yeah.
I have to read this indie comment. Have I stumbled into a meeting of the Bernard Montgomery fan club? How else to explain the absence of Patton so far? Is that a hint, Indy?
I think it's a good time to you know what, actually I think that's one that's like in my list, and that's also considered like one of the really great war movies. So anybody
George
want to
C.
talk
Scott's
about
best one.
Right.
I mean, it's George C. Scott is incredible as Patton, and
He is.
I don't really know what to say about the movie because I haven't seen it in a really long time either.
Well, again, they did take certain liberties for the purposes of drama,
Yeah.
but it was amazingly accurate. I think they really got his persona down. His obsession with, I don't want to say the occult, but with past life experience and how he drew upon that in his whole conduct of his generalship is really, really amazing. And it's not that he was like trying to summon demons for advice. No, he literally believed himself to have been soldiers in these past wars. And he used the lessons from these past wars to become a very effective general who he had something of a colored record. There were a couple of glaring oops-a-daisies, but he was an amazing general. He was an amazing leader, and they just nailed it. And one thing I give them bonus points for, that movie came out at the height of not just the Vietnam War, but the height of the anti-Vietnam movement. So to try to make a movie which edifies an American general, bold move. You gotta give him 10 out of 10 for style.
And I think they go into, if I remember correctly, some of the conflicts between Eisenhower and Patton a little bit, right? Like what Patton wanted to do versus what Eisenhower's plans were, and kind of showed like this, this interesting perspective of directions that people want to go, right? And for me, I'm always interested in the choices that our officers make, especially our high-ranking officers, and some of the motivations behind those. Because again, there's always these different incentives that people can have, right? Because being a general can be extremely profitable, especially once you retire, right? Because like there's always positions with war profiteers and stuff like that, and as lobbyists and things like that, and so and then there's certain generals that are truly like patriotic, do it for connected to the soldiers, things like that, and have like the respect of the enlisted, right? And so these dichotomies between those are always interesting to me, and how that impacts like how their decision making can impact the soldiers, and the complex sociodynamic aspects of the military are always really interesting to me.
It was, in fact, they theorized this wasn't touched upon in the movie because he's still alive at the end of it. Now, of course, he was horribly injured in a car accident, a Jeep accident, but he died mysteriously afterwards, and they think his injuries shouldn't have been life-threatening. There's a theory that he was killed, and one of the ideas he had stumbled upon the supposed Nazi treasure train. He knew its whereabouts, and someone didn't want him to go public with this. Possibly the Odessa, the underground Nazi movement, who wanted it to finance their operations. Some say it was the Soviets because, well, let's face facts, he was, on top of everything else, he was pushing for a war with the Soviets. Some people think it was our own SS because they had seized the treasure train. I don't like that theory, but it's necessarily written in the record. You have to get these things straight. But yes, he had an amazing ability to involve himself in intrigues as well as his actual war performance, and I think you're very right there, Scott.
And if you want to watch it, it is free on Sling TV.
Oh, cool! I didn't know that. I haven't seen it since I was like a teenager, so.
You know what, Eric's mom, that's a lot of the mentality that I've heard about Patton, is that really, really brilliant, like, general, but did not, like, people respected, like, his generalship and his, like you said, his military mind, but hated him as a person.
I can see that.
I can see that too.
Yeah, and you can watch. I don't know if I said this or I was just thinking.
Sling TV.
Yeah, Sling. Thank you. Okay, there you go.
Oh, Danny, to answer your question, Dr. Strangelove is the movie where the dude rides the nuke at the end of the movie, and
Slim
that was
Pickens,
actually
yeah.
It was Slim Pickens, not the Pink Panther or.
But there's so much Peter Sellers in that movie. I can see why you get confused.
He plays 3 roles.
Yeah, I know. So that was your choice, Scott. So I guess that means it's my turn. Let me go look at my list again. I wasn't ready for that. Okay, I'm gonna break the bridge thing. I'm gonna mention the first bridge movie. The Bridge on the River Kwai. David Lean. God, this is the one where they're basically Japanese POWs again, but this time they have to. Do they have to protect the bridge, or I don't remember what they were doing? Were they building the bridge?
Build it.
They were building the bridge, right?
And that's the amazing thing is the Japanese are mishandling it,
right?
And what happens is Sir Alec Guinness, as the commander, he decides that the bridge is going to be. He has to give his men something to do, to motivate them, to maintain discipline, and to even keep them alive. They have to have a reason to, like, get up and, like, move and not just lay there and rot. And so he decides, well, what's the point of building a half-assed bridge? Let's build them the best bridge, a better bridge than they can build, and that's how we will upstage them. And some of the other people go, have you lost your frickin' mind? If the Japanese build a lousy bridge and it collapses, ha 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 ha. But he's like, no, we shall build an excellent bridge. And it becomes an obsession for him.
Right. And I think of all war movies, I think this one has the best final line, and it's just Alec Guinness saying madness. madness. That's it. That's the last line of the movie. So good. And it's based on the book The Bridge Over the River Kwai by Pierre Boulle, the same guy who wrote Planet of the Apes. Anyway,
Fun fact, yeah. But yeah, it's an amazing movie. And the whole pissing contest between Sir Alec Guinness and, I'm so ashamed I can't remember the Japanese actor's name. I actually know and can name a few other movies he's been. I used to know his name, but the conflict between the two of them is so amazing. Even more so because it would have never actually played out that way. They would have just shot Alec Guinness and said, "Okay, let's try this again. You guys gonna go to work or what?" And
oh, but yeah, spoiler alert, they do blow it up in the end. Yeah.
yes, they do. And a double spoiler alert: Alec Guinness, who's become so obsessed with this bridge, actually tries to thwart its demolition,
Right.
Because it's become his reason to live. And well, madness.
Madness. Yeah.
Madness.
So good. Oh, and Holden, of course.
Oh, Holden's still in the movie.
Yeah.
Holden's amazing in that movie. Love William Holden.
And I could have picked a couple of different David Lean movies. But in terms of like a sheer war movie, a movie about war and the mentality of war, I feel like Bridge Over the River Kwai is the best. Or Bridge on the River Kwai is the best of his in that regard. It's not my favorite David Lean movie, but it's probably my favorite David Lean war movie.
Gotcha.
So I guess that means it's your turn, Thrash.
Oh, good. Well, I am going to honor your implicit request and do another David Lean movie.
Excellent.
And this movie is, and I'm sure you folks have heard me talk about this before, it's arguably the only World War II police procedural film I can think of. It is Night of the Generals.
Yes.
And what I love about this movie is the whole thing, it's not even really about the war. Movie starts off, a prostitute is killed. Now, normally nobody in the Wehrmacht would have cared about this, but she was also a German agent, so they think she was killed by a member of the resistance. Well, when they do some cursory investigation, they find that she was actually killed by a German general, and that's really serious because what if the generals are plotting against our Führer? So they assign this guy to investigate it, played by he's the captain in their legal department, played by Omar Sharif, and he finds that only 3 generals were unaccounted for that night, and each of them had something to hide, and the rest of the movie is him trying to sort out who did it, and there's a few red herrings involved, but it's just, again, the war is that's why some people don't count it as a war film, because it's really a backdrop in this one, because it's all the intrigue between Omar Sharif and the generals. But I think the drama involved, there's a wonderful subplot with Tom Courtney, who plays a soldier in the German military who doesn't want to be a soldier in the German military. And it's just such a human drama that it's just a captivating story. And again, some of the best war films are the ones where the war is just a backdrop. And I will stand by this one.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard you mention it before. I've heard you talk about it before, but I haven't seen it yet. So it's on my list. I promise.
I missed the title. What was that movie
Night
that
of the Generals by David Lean.
I haven't heard of that one.
It's the 3 generals are played by Peter O'Toole, who is amazing. Charles Gray, who's very, very good as well. And I'm so ashamed. Halloween movies. Short bald guy glasses.
Pleasance. Donald Pleasance.
Donald Pleasance. Ironically, the 2 men who also both played Blofeld in the Bond films.
Oh yeah.
Little fun fact there. But they play the 3 generals. They're all at their best. Christopher Plummer plays Erwin Rommel, and he's in a very small part. But you haven't lived until you've seen Christopher Plummer play Erwin Rommel.
Okay, you got me there, man. That sounds amazing. I want to see Christopher Plummer play Rommel.
He is amazing as Rommel.
Wow.
So yeah, where can we find this, Scott?
You can. It's rent for rent only. You can rent it from Vudu, Prime, YouTube, Google Play Movies and TV stuff like that. So it's not streaming for free, but you can rent it, and it like for the cast alone, it's definitely worth renting.
Yeah, absolutely outstanding cast. Outstanding cast.
Indy claims it was directed by Litvak.
Oh, wait a second. David Lean, did he maybe no, Spiegel produced it. You know? Maybe I'm just wrong, Indy.
Yeah, it could be. Maybe you got confused by Omar Sharif.
Well, yes, and he did so many David Lean movies.
Exactly.
Maybe he was a co-producer or something. I could have sworn I saw his name in the credits. And I assumed director, but thank you, Indy. You're my human fact checker.
Okay, I guess that means it is Scott's turn. What do you got?
Okay, I know this can this might cross genres and stuff like that, but I still think that this is one of the best war movies ever made, and that's Super Troopers. Or I'm sorry, Starship Troopers.
I was going to say you do mean Starship Troopers.
Sorry, yeah, Starship Troopers, not Super Troopers. Starship Troopers.
We'll come in again.
sorry, that was my bad. No, Starship Troopers. Starship Troopers.
Gotcha. You know what? I'll count it. Starship Troopers, not Super Troopers.
Yeah, Starship Troopers. I think is because, and the reason that I like it as a war movie itself is it gets into the construct of propaganda and jingoism that we create, and the otherism that we create in order to, and also touches on it's such a great anti-war movie that really delves into because the questionable aspects of our recruiting processes, the propaganda that we use, the advertisements that we use to recruit these kids into risking their lives, right? And again, this is from my perspective, before they even get a fully developed brain to make solid choices, right? Because they have the long-term decision-making skills of a 14-year-old, and that doesn't change until about 22. Or actually doesn't improve until 22 and doesn't fully solidify until 25. So we're having children make the choice, even though they're, the age of majority, or we're having children making these choices based on all of these factors that influence us. And I think Starship Troopers, really does kind of delve into this concept of the propagandization of war. And so.
Well, I mean, okay, I'll say this. Because if you know me, if you've been watching my channel long enough, I despise that movie. But I despise it because of the book. It has nothing to do with the book. Just he didn't even read the book. He didn't, and what he did read, he completely misinterpreted. He missed the whole point of the book.
Yes,
he did.
The book is definitely better.
But I will say this: Paul Verhoeven.
Johnny's not even Filipino in the movie.
I know,
dude. Come on, you got the kid's race wrong.
I know, right.
And there's no mech suits. I mean, how can you have Starship Troopers without mech suits? But anyway,
there's that too.
Paul Verhoeven. I mean, he grew up in Nazi-occupied Amsterdam. I mean, the guy saw fascism face to face. He knew it. So he was trying to make a point that only he could make from his perspective, and I get it, and I appreciate it. I just really wish he hadn't called the movie Starship Troopers.
True. Originally, it was supposed to be called Bug Hunt on Planet 9 or something
right.
like that.
There was two different scripts that were kind of melded together. Yeah. It's a long story.
Yeah. But let's just look at the movie objectively by itself.
It's hard for me to do. It's really hard for me to do.
No, I understand. Well, it's hard. It's hard with any movie based on a book. That's hard to do, particularly if you've actually read the book. I mean, All Quiet on the Western Front. You have to look objectively at those. Although those are far more faithful to the source material. I'll give you that much.
Tracy's here.
Oh, hey,
I
Tracy,
just,
help me
I
feel better.
do like, again, from as I again separate from, like, I get the complaints about that it's not true to the book, and that's a movie that I actually think would be a great opportunity for a remake, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Will
right.
they get it right this time?
Absolutely,
Yeah,
yes, that would
yeah.
be nice.
Get it right to
Yeah.
the book, right? And I agree with you that if you change the title, it could be like, if you change the title and just acknowledge that it's not based on this book, it may be influenced by this book, but it's not based on this book at all, right? And so change the title. But I think the movie is a really great movie. It's a fun movie. It, like, just as a movie, it's a fun movie. It's they use it as a great thought-provoking story. And then also, like, my favorite thing is that we were watching it and one of my friends go, like, when they finally reach the master bug or whatever, they're like, holy crud. Again, they use different words at this time, but we're all watching it and he goes, the master bug is a giant hoo-ha. Like, and like, after that, I've never been able to see it as anything other than the most disturbing giant hoo-ha that I've ever seen in my entire life. And so, like, it's like,
And it gets to be studied by Doogie Howser in a Gestapo outfit.
Right?
So there's that.
There was no accident that the uniforms were very German inspired.
Of course, obviously, yeah.
And the fact that they're all beautiful, not just young people, beautiful young people.
Yes.
I mean, they're all but saying that there have been genetic engineering to make us Ubermensch. I mean, that game they play in the beginning, I mean, if you watch some of the contact in it, I mean, those kids would have been crippled. You know,
Yeah.
but they just kind of shake it off. Oh, yeah, I got extra vertebrae, I'm fine. But I will grant you, if they had called it Attack on the Shoulder of Orion, say, it would have been I would have enjoyed it far more. Well, it's like I always say about Columbia TriStar's Godzilla. If you called it Big Iguana Eats New York, I could have had fun with it. You called it Godzilla, and it's not.
It has nothing to do with Godzilla.
Nothing. Absolutely nothing. Godzilla doesn't run from anything. Nothing. He does not run.
Emmerich just wanted to see something destroy Roger Ebert. That's all he wanted.
Payback. Yeah, no, and I agree with you.
Also, Denise Richards can't act her way out of a paper bag. I'm sorry.
No, there is one reason to have Denise Richards in a movie, and that's...
there's two really good reasons. Yeah.
Wild Things is my
well
favorite film of all
played on
time.
that one. Well played on that one. Yes, there are two glorious reasons to
Because she plays a great nuclear physicist, like she did in that James Bond movie. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But for me, I did enjoy that movie, and like, my wife and I were talking about this, and she was like, "Are you going to bring up Starship Troopers?" And I was like, "Of course I'm going to bring up Starship Troopers." And she's like, "Good." And so she actually met the Casper
Van Dien.
Dean. Yeah, she actually met Casper Van Dien years ago. I think they were in Vietnam, and he hit on my wife's sister, and so
Oh,
yeah.
cool.
Yeah,
Cool.
and so
Anthony Michael Hall hit on my wife once.
oh, did he?
Yeah. Oh, she's telling me not to tell the story. I'm sorry. But yes, he did. It was before we were married.
Hey, that's got to be one of those get out of jail free right there. And so, anyways.
But one thing I will bring, even though the battle with the bugs, the bug war, didn't actually take place, I love it as a war film because, again, it's a satire. If you look at it that way, in the same sense of Twilight Zone. I mean, Rod Serling wanted to do social commentary stories, and they said no effing way. But when he did social commentary in the sort of abstract science fiction setting, they're like, oh yeah, this is great. I mean, Verhoeven was making an anti-war, anti-fascist movie, but set it in a futuristic setting, so you really couldn't pick up on it, and no one would take umbrage, I think is the term I'm looking for. Very clever. Innovative, too, I'd say.
Well, okay, if we're going to go this route and we're going to talk about war movies that are very, very thinly veiled under science fiction, I'm going to take one that's very, very similar to Starship Troopers, and that's Aliens, because that is a Vietnam movie, and you cannot convince me otherwise.
I don't know about Vietnam. Certainly the American rebuilding of the military afterwards, that sort of Reagan era, hoorah.
Oh, absolutely,
we're
yeah.
gonna win this time. I would say post Vietnam. But I
Fair
know
enough.
I can see exactly what you're saying. I mean, the Reagan era was the biggest peacetime military buildup in global history. And everyone's like, what is he planning? Why do you think we won for Gulf so easily? We took an army which could have fought the planet, all of it, and said, oh, see this country the size of California? Splat. I'm sorry, I'll get off the soapbox now.
No, but I do bring up Aliens also because I do think it was partially inspired by Starship Troopers, the book.
Definitely.
I mean, it's got the mech suits, but also like the mentality of the unit is very similar to Starship Troopers. And the idea that they're going on a bug hunt, I mean, there's a lot there.
Yes.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Bring it up for a reason. That's all.
And you can watch Alien on Hulu, and Starship Troopers is rental or purchase only.
Where can we find Super Troopers though?
Oh, you know what? That's a good point. I didn't look that up. So that you can actually. Oh wait, it doesn't say. I think that's rental also. No, you can watch it on Prime. No, it's on Stars. I'm sorry, it's on Stars.
Oh, okay. I guess that means it's your turn, Thrash.
Oh, thank you. Oh, I'd like to address this Red Dawn. I had friends in high school who thought Red Dawn should be a training film for American high school students when the Soviets invaded, and we all knew they would. That the American high school kids would like run to the woods with hunting rifles and shotguns and repel the attack. Super patriotic. Don't know how well it would have worked, but I just had, and yes, but it was definitely it was basically, was it the it's either called the Cross of Lorraine or the Purple Heart, but it was a World War II film about French partisans, and Red Dawn borrowed from it quite heavily. So I do agree with you there. And now let's see another pick. I'm gonna go with one of my favorite Rod Steiger films, Waterloo. Again with Christopher Plummer in it, only this time playing the Duke of Wellington. And this movie has everything. They actually it was filmed in Eastern Europe, and they got thousands, literally thousands of extras to dress up as soldiers to recreate the battles. The battle recreation scenes are literally breathtaking in the scope. Their attention to detail with the historic accuracy, Indy would be impressed. And just the pissing contest between Rod Steiger, who's my favorite actor of all time, and Christopher Plummer, who's definitely in the top 5. Just the whole thing just so comes together. It works as a period piece, it works as a war film, it works as an action film, and just good drama.
I've never seen it. I mean, I've heard of it, but I've never seen it, so I have nothing to contribute.
All right, I missed the title. What was it?
Oh, Waterloo.
Oh! I don't think I've seen that one.
You have? Oh, double plus good. Excellent.
That's
it opens with Napoleon's surrender, and he gives this speech to the old guard, and I become emotional every time I see it. I've probably seen it 15 times, and every time I see it, where he goes, "I have come to say, after 20 years, goodbye," and then he goes, "I love you all, but I cannot embrace you all." So what he does is he takes the French flag and he uses it to dry his tears. And I'm like, I become a 13-year-old girl watching Titanic. Yeah.
That's awesome.
So
Ridley Scott's making that Napoleon movie that's going to come out soon.
Yeah.
That
It
looks
is.
amazing.
It
That
does
looks
look really
amazing.
good. Yeah.
I
So
mean, I'm
you
not
can
sure
watch.
what. No, go
Oh,
ahead.
go ahead.
I was going to say, Joaquin Phoenix is Napoleon. Maybe I'll give it a shot. I promise to give it an even-handed try. He just whenever I don't when I think Napoleon, I don't think of him. You know, I I would have gone with Gary Oldman,
Well, Gary Oldman can do anything.
Yeah.
So
which is
yeah.
why I would have gone with him. I mean, I would have thought Napoleon way before I thought Churchill. So if he could pull off Churchill,
Oh, that's such a good point. Yeah, he did such a good job as Churchill.
so yeah.
And
But again,
you can watch Waterloo on YouTube, actually, the whole thing. And so I'm putting the actual link in our
Nice.
yeah.
I have.
So.
Thank you, Scott.
Okay. Well,
right.
that means it's your turn, Scott.
I have to go with a movie that I really, really like. It's a really hard movie to watch, but it's Fury with Brad Pitt. Yeah, and where's Shia LaBeouf? John Barenthal is phenomenal in that.
I love
Scott
John
Eastwood,
Bernthal. He's
yeah.
such a good actor.
Such a good actor. And then Logan Lerman is like the new guy, the young kid in the brigade and everything. But they do an excellent job. And you see like one of the things also that I love about these movies is how easy it is in these moments, because especially when you have the power, right? How easy it is to us to
Sorry.
when you feel like He-Man, right? No, but like how easy it is to lose your humanity, and what a struggle it is to ensure that everyone maintains their humanity and doesn't abuse the power that they have, right? And there's a scene in this movie where Brad Pitt, as the head of the tank, they take over this French city, and they go into these people's houses, and they go to sit down to have like just a normal dinner, right? With these two French women, and they're or maybe they're German. I can't remember offhand, but they're trying to
I think
have.
they're French. Yeah.
Okay, they are French. Okay, and they're trying to have something like he's trying to have something normalized, right? But then some of his group like are getting into this barbarism of sorts, right? And the conflict, and how it's trying to again find home in this chaos and maintain humanity, and how, and again, that conflict and that contrast between, and how do you and I love those little pieces where it's like, how do we maintain our humanity in the worst thing that a human being can go through, and how do we not become the evil that we're trying to fight or stop, right? Because when we portray the enemy as this evil, and we portray their behavior as evil, how easy it is for us to fall into that, to do similarly, right? And to rationalize, well, they're doing it, so we need to do it. And if we don't, then we're just fighting with one arm behind our back. But if we don't, we lose our moral high ground, right? We lose what we're trying to fight for, and we become the evil that we say we're trying to fight, right? And it's a really good, it's a great movie. So
I had to highlight this comment by Vim Thrash, because he's saying one of the best German movies about World War II is called Just the Bridge. So that goes with your theory.
Well, and it is. I bought that movie. I had a friend who was an even bigger war film buff than I am. I don't know. But yeah, he had everything. He had a library where it's like, it became almost a game. Have you heard of this? Have you heard of that? And I found this movie, The Bridge, and I actually called him from work and said, hey, someone's having this movie, The Bridge. Have you seen it? And he goes, no, I haven't heard of that. And I go, yeah, it's this German war film. I bought it for him as a present when we watched it together, and it is an absolutely amazing movie. Particularly when you consider the German film industry didn't have a huge budget in the 50s. And you could tell they kind of had to pinch a little here and there. But it's an absolutely breathtaking film. It's basically about a group of high school kids who were drafted. They become part of the whole Bundeswehr in the last days of the war, and the officer who basically becomes their commanding officer decides, well, I have a brilliant and cunning plan. I'll have them guard a bridge on the other side of the town, in case the Allies decide to sweep all the way around the town before they invade it. Brilliant, right? Well, guess what the Allies decide to do? So you have these teenage boys actually having to fight American tanks, and they've had no training. There's this one horrible, horrible scene, and I get spoilers. One of them has a Panzerfaust, and his best friend is standing behind him. And as he goes to fire it, my friend and I, we look at the screen and we're like, no! But yes, you know where this is going. He ends up killing his kid with the flash burn with the Panzerfaust. And it's an absolutely breathtaking film. And again, thank you. It does fit my my credo that any movie with the word bridge is a good one.
Cool. Oh, is it my turn? Wow, I think it's my turn.
Yes.
I've lost track, but yeah, sure, it's your turn. Sure.
We're going a little long, but I don't mind. Let's see. Since we're talking about German war movies, somebody's got to bring it up. Das Boot. I love submarine movies. I consider myself something of a submarine movie enthusiast, but like you can't beat Das Boot. It is the best. It has every single trope you get from a submarine movie in one movie. It's also one of the most tense movies about. I mean, it is a pressure cooker. I mean, literally, it's a pressure cooker. And the whole movie, you will sweat just watching the movie, just from the tension. We've all seen a submarine movie where they're going below crush depth, right? We've all seen it, and like screws coming off the walls and stuff. Das Boot does it the best.
Yes, it does.
It is incredibly tense. Like, you will feel it. You will feel like you're being crushed. It is. Oh God, it's so good. And what's the actor's name? Crap, I can't remember the actor's. Prochnow. Jürgen Prochnow.
Yeah.
Jürgen Prochnow. Yeah. Oh man, so good. And yeah, that's a movie I watch with the subtitles off. I mean, it's in German, and I do understand enough German that I can kind of follow along, but you don't really need to. You don't need to like understand what they're saying to really like get the emotional impact of the movie. And that's what the movie really hits you with, is the emotion. And I think any good movie can do that. But Das Boot, excellent war movie, the best submarine movie of all, and I've seen pretty much all of them.
No, it's an absolutely amazing movie, and on so many different levels. The scene where they sink a British freighter, and they go up to make sure that it's finished, and they see survivors that weren't picked up with the rescue team, and they start swimming towards the sub for salvation. And the sub, after the Laconia incident, German subs were forbidden to take part in anything in the way of a rescue mission, so they had to just back away and let them drown. And one guy actually starts crying. It's just such an amazing scene.
Oh, absolutely.
The film just works on so many levels. It really does.
As I understand it, there's a series, like a mini series based on Das Boot that came out recently that's actually good. Like, people keep telling me it's actually good because I doubt it. It's like, it's hard for me to imagine anybody doing Das Boot again.
You set yourself up there, pal.
I know. And Jürgen Prochnow, a funny little like epilogue is that he was in Wing Commander playing a captain of a space vessel. And there's a point where he has to hide his vessel on the surface of an asteroid, and they all have to be really, really quiet, like they're in a submarine in space. That movie's terrible.
It's dreadful. Well, of course, and I know there's some notable exceptions. When you base a movie on a video game, you're asking for trouble. Now,
especially back then.
Well, because every 14-year-old boy who's played a video game says, man, this adventure I'm playing in this game right now would make an awesome movie. No, it wouldn't. You love it because you're in the moment and you're having it at the time of your life. But if you turn it into a movie, you'd bore people to death. So, and again, I saw Wing Commander wanting to love it, and I did not.
It makes the games look really like narratively dense and interesting, and the games are really cheesy.
I had a friend who loved it at the time. That was like 30 years ago, wasn't it?
Oh, it's a long time ago. Yeah, I remember going to see it in the theater just because it was promised to have the first trailer for Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace, in front of it. Me and my brother went to go see the whole movie just for that.
It was also it was one of the first movies that did that thing where they used like 90 cameras.
Yeah.
You could get like complete angle shots, and so they would freeze it and then do that spin and then pick up from the other angle. And I thought that was they stole it shamelessly from Hong Kong cinema. But when I first saw that, I thought that was like my mind was like blown. I'm like, wow, how did they do that? They took a bunch of cameras for that one shot.
What that movie needed, Wing Commander, it needed the cast from the games. It needed like Mark Hamill and Malcolm McDowell hamming it up to 1,000, you know?
Oh, that would be
Yeah,
great.
That could have worked.
Oh, that would have been nice.
Anyway, I don't know why we're talking about Wing Commander anymore.
Well, it's sort of a war.
Against giant space cats.
Space Cat. Daddy-O. I wonder if there's a Red Dwarf crossover.
Okay. That'd actually be fun. I'd watch that.
Yeah, now you're talking.
Thrash, your turn.
Again?
I think we're gonna start wrapping it up. So like this will probably be our last picks. So this is your last.
Sure.
Pick.
All right. I'm going to throw in a bridge title, and there's not a lot to say about it. It's a great film. It's The Bridge at Remagen. And the thing I always liked about this one the most is it was actually done by David L. Wolper, who was in fact a historian. So the level of accuracy is outstanding, but they did manage to create enough drama to make it engaging. Robert Vaughn plays a German officer who, long story short, he can't be given direct orders because it's in violation of the Wehrmacht has decided to blow up all the bridges along the Remagen, along the Rhine, so the Allies can't enter. It's the last days of the war. But there's this one army that's still on the other side. So in direct violation of headquarters, this colonel sends Vaughn out and says, hold the bridge open as long as you can so we can get the 17th Army back in. And he does everything he can, but we all know how things work out for him. And it shows the 7th Infantry, led by George Siegel, who I think is also amazing. And it shows their actual march to the bridge and how what they think is this minor engagement is actually one of the most pivotal engagements on the Western Front. And again, it's told from both sides. And you really, it's so, talk about tension. It's so tense for the Germans, you actually get caught up in it. It's like, we have to destroy the bridge. No, we have to keep it open. We're running out of time. Give me 5 more minutes. It's just a really amazing movie, and I love it.
Okay, I've never seen it, so.
Never seen it either. But if you want to, you can actually watch it for free on either Tubi or Amazon Prime.
Cool.
Yeah. So.
Excellent.
Okay, I guess it's my turn.
Sorry, it's your turn. Yeah.
So I'm gonna take 2 because you actually, like, when you brought up Das Boot, like, you actually skipped me, but I was okay with that because I need to catch up on some of the titles.
Sorry, I didn't even realize I did that.
No, that's all right. That's all right. No, I need to catch up on some of the titles and where to find them so we can get this. But just so that for people, Das Boot, the original, you can, if you have a Fubo subscription, which is like a TV, like internet TV subscription, you can watch it or you can rent it. You know, it's available for rental or purchase. But the Das Boot miniseries is on Hulu if you want to watch that. Excellent. So the 2 that I'm going to bring up is, the first one is Master and Commander. Indy had brought that up earlier.
Oh yeah, that was a good one.
But
yeah.
That's one of my all-time favorites. That is absolutely one of my all-time favorites. Like, I love like the old school naval battle like movies, and I thought that one did such a good job because you have all of these people, because again, a lot of these sailors were like privateers and part of part of the military, but also you're doing exploration with it too, right? And so you have the medic who wants to get to the Galapagos to be able to, do his natural studies and things like that while he's doing his medic, duties and stuff. And the urgency of and the difficulties of trying to battle on the seas, right? I think they did just such a good job with that movie. I really, really love that one.
Oh, yeah. No, I agree completely.
Yeah, and if you want to watch it, where is it? You can watch it on Prime or Tubi. And then the other one, so this is not actually like a movie, but in preparation for this, it's one that I'd heard a lot of good things about. And so I watched it and prep for this. Oh, here it is. It's the series that HBO did called Generation Kill, based on the book Generation Kill. That to me is one of the, like, I am so glad I watched it. It is, it's up there with like Band of Brothers to me. Like, it is an excellent series that's on Max or HBO Max or what used to be HBO. And the whole time it's about the invasion of Iraq, right? And it kind of follows these guys, because a reporter was stationed with them and was with this group from start to finish, right? These Marine, I can't remember the name, but they're the ones that go out first to search. And like reconnaissance. Thank you. They're the Marine reconnaissance and the recon group, and they're in these Humvees that are poorly armored, and they're having and my brother-in-law served in Iraq, and I remember him talking about how he had to purchase his own equipment because what they were providing and what was provided by the military was subpar. And so in order to get good equipment, our soldiers actually had to go out and buy it themselves. And they even talk about it in this series where like they're ordering things off eBay and, not being able to get equipment, the politics that are involved and how that impacts the soldiers. And, the politics between the officers because they're trying to gather rank, the poor decision making. And as we all know, we went in without a plan to do with what to do with it afterwards. And you start to kind of see it, they kind of portray in this, like we go in with one attitude and as they call it, like the REOs, like with one agenda of what to do and who to kill and how, and that starts getting expanded and expanded and expanded. And then all of a sudden we are going to be here for a while. And now we have to kind of rebuild a relationship with these people, even though like, you get why they have like an expanded because they don't know who the soldiers are. But then also at the same time, now you're embedded and you have to build relationships and, and again, the agendas of higher ranking officers impacting when the lower ranking, when the soldiers actually get good intel and they can actually do good work and stuff like that, and how that gets overseeded by the agendas of the officers, again, trying to get stars and bars and stuff. And it's a really, really good, honest reflection of these soldiers and like the honor that they do and the difficulties that they face, and yet it's still having to do the job, right? And you gain, I don't know, to me, I just gained so much respect for our soldiers when I watch these films. Yeah.
No, that sounds good. I've never seen it, but
I haven't seen it. It sounds amazing.
Yeah,
it is. It's if you have Max, I would absolutely, if you have Max, sit down and watch that series. It is totally worth it. It's when it first came out, it was one that I couldn't watch just because we were so close to the Iraq war and everything like that. But like, no, like, again, one of the best lines. boy, you need to police that mustache. You know, it's like the like the Major Sergeant is just one of the best characters ever. And again, also it gets in that, like, you've got some people that are a little bit sociopathic. And because I think that we should do an MMPI on all of our soldiers and also police. But my problem with that is that if you were to do those psychological screens, we wouldn't have soldiers and police, or at least enough of them.
Not very many, yeah.
Right. Right. And so, but you know, and so again, it's that conflict between trying to maintain humanity. John Huertas plays a soldier who really has this struggle with that. Alexander Sarsgaard and James Ranson, that's Sergeant Brad, Iceman, and Corporal Josh Ray, their rapport, their relationship, and they're like the main ones that they follow, because Lee Turgensen, who was in
Oz. Yeah.
Oz, yes. Phenomenal actor, and he plays the reporter in this, so those are the ones that he's following, and it really shows the relationship that they build. Stark Sands is the lieutenant of the division, and he's excellent. Chance Kelly plays Godfather, and he's called Godfather because he's got a raspy voice because he had throat cancer. And so he's like, okay, boys, this is what we're going to do. And it's just it's great. It's all the characters, everything. It's an excellent series, and it's one I highly, highly recommend watching. I'm sorry. I really wanted to get that in. Because it's so good to watch.
No, cool. Very cool. I'll put it on my list. But no, as for my list on this, I have a couple of movies still left, but let's see. Instead of talking about Casablanca, because that's like a 3-hour conversation in and of itself, I'm just going to bring up real quick Slaughterhouse 5, because I've already done a video on it. Kurt Vonnegut, who lived through the bombing of Dresden, wrote the book Slaughterhouse 5, and it's a little bit of sci-fi, it's a little bit of autobiography, it's a little bit of a war movie, but I really do feel like it explains that traumatic mental break you have to go through if you've lived through something as horrible as the bombing of Dresden, where you think you're the good guys, and the good guys basically are destroying the city with you in it. And you have to deal with all of that. You have to deal with the suffering. You have to deal with the torment. And just the after effects of going back home and trying to build a normal life after something like that. I don't know. You would break. You would start talking to Trafalgarians and stuff. And I feel like the movie version of Slaughterhouse 5 does not get nearly enough credit for being a really good movie and a surprisingly good adaptation of a novel that if you read it without knowing there was a movie, you'd probably say this is completely unfilmable because it's constantly jumping through time. And yeah, randomly he winds up talking to aliens at Trafalgar and they teach him that time is not linear and blah, 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 blah. You wouldn't think you could make a movie out of this, but it's a great movie. And I will stand by the fact that it's a great war movie because it's all about the mentality of what you go through during war and especially after war.
Well, yeah, I mean, the main conflict, the story arc, the rest of the movie revolves around is his experiences in World War II.
Yeah.
So yes, it's definitely a war film, peppered with these other things which give it flavor. But no, I couldn't agree with you more. It does constitute a war film or count as one.
But I don't know. Do you guys want to do a part 2 of this? Because I still got movies on my list.
Oh, I've got so many. I would love to do a part 2.
I have at least a half a dozen. And I thought about a couple others. So yes, let's do a part 2, please.
And on top of it, the great thing about it is that we talked about doing this because this is Veterans Day holiday and everything. And in 2 weeks, it would be Thanksgiving. And so I think that's also, it's still, if we did a part 2, it would still be in honor of our soldiers because it's a way of us being able to give thanks to them, right? And the hardships that they're carrying, you know, and I always say this, like, especially when I work with,
And we can do all kinds of movies where we kill Native Americans.
right.
I do have on my list Little Big Men.
Well, there you go. That's a good
there you
choice.
go.
Yeah,
So,
we can
yeah,
definitely talk
so,
about
Yeah.
that.
And that would
Yeah.
be excellent for Thanksgiving weekend.
But I think it's also like just kind of giving thanks for everything that they do and the honor and the what they carry for us. And also when it comes to mental health, like we wouldn't have the advances that we have when it comes to treating PTSD without them. And so not only do they carry the load of protecting us, but then also they carry the load of helping advance our treatment of each other, right? Because PTSD is much bigger, is big in our society, along with our soldiers.
Oh,
So,
guys, I look at the time. I got a motor, so
Yes.
I hate
Yeah,
to
yeah,
bolt
let's-
in the last minute. So
yeah.
It's at 2 hours. Perfect. So go ahead. But we'll see
Take
you
care,
tonight.
guys.
Thrash on his channel. I'll
Yes.
go ahead and you
7:30.
go ahead and go. 7:30 Eastern time. Go check out
4:30
Thrash's
Pacific.
channel. Yeah, I'll be in the comments most likely, depending on whether or not I get dinner done in time. But like the comments seem pretty unanimous that we should do a part 2, so let's do that. And here's something I never thought I'd hear my mother say. Anyway, yeah, thank you guys. And especially thank you to all of our veterans. We wouldn't be able to do this without you, honestly.
Right.
We know that. And you know, me and Scott, we both have people in our lives who are in the military. You know, we know what it's like. We get it. I come from a military family. And yeah, we'll talk about. I'm surprised by how many war movies I wound up wanting to talk about because I didn't think I had that many in my repertoire. But now that I think about it more, I realize I've got a lot.
Yeah.
So yeah. Anyway, yep. Look forward to that.
There's just so great, and again, it's just great characters, right?
Yeah.
Because again, it's the most horrific thing a human being can go through. So how do you maintain who you are as a person? After
Yeah, I think like what you were
experiencing
saying
this? It's such a
before
challenge.
about like how do you maintain your own humanity in a situation like that? I think that's kind of a running theme in all war movies, almost, right? Yeah. So yeah. Anyway, we'll talk more in 2 weeks. See you then.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Bye.